Welcome to Really American. I am Michael Hayne. Now, JD Vance's performance at last week's vice presidential debate was basically as if a upper management hired some smarmy, sycophanted toad to convince an older guy into a reverse mortgage. Yes, he is a sociopath, a polite one, but a sociopath nonetheless. He's basically as if you combine the manipulative, kiss ass Eddie Haskell from that Leave It to Beaver show with the looks and appearance of John Wayne Gacy, and you get JD Vance. Anyway, his watershed moment was his refusal to accept the legitimate results of the 2020 election, of course, culminating in his full-blown conversion to dork MAGA, not dark MAGA, dork MAGA, going from fierce Trump critic to MAGA cheerleader.
Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
You got a little orange Cheeto dust right there, JD, if you know. Anyway, Vance's response was obviously a major departure from what he actually said in the immediate weeks after the 2020 election, when in a little notice interview, he actually outright implied, no, not insinuated, he outright said that he believed that Trump had lost the election and that Biden would be inaugurated.
The interview JD Vance doesn't want Donald Trump to see. Our K-file unearthing it. These are Vance's comments in the weeks after the 2020 election, admitting Joe Biden won it. Now, this is consistent with the old JD Vance, who was a vocal Trump critic. But it is, of course, a very far cry from what we hear from Vance now, which
I really don't see any reason to think that this is going to become violent or chaotic. I think that when Biden is inaugurated, people will more or less accept it, and it'll be on to the next fight.
about this issue.
Yeah, look, we went through every JD Vance when he was nominated, every JD Vance tweet. We went through his deleted tweets. We went through his likes. We went through his public statements and interviews after the election, before the election. We did not find one single instance of him claiming that the 2020 election was stolen. In fact, we found the opposite of that until he decides to run for office. And at that point, he is basically making a play for Donald Trump's endorsement. He's a former critic, and we see him out there with the same rhetoric as basically every other candidate in that crowded Republican primary for the Ohio Senate, saying that the election was stolen from Donald Trump.
So it's amazing when you look.
Busted big time, JD. You gonna accept this, maggots? Come on. I don't know if there's any maggots out there that actually watch this. I mean, we don't really test well with chimps. But if there are any MAGAs out there, Biden beat Trump. See it? I even circled it for you, so it's even easier. Biden beat Trump. Not my words, JD Vance's words. The good old, big old MAGA cuck now. Where was he a short while ago? He wasn't part of your fight. No. He was on the sidelines. He was saying he was not only a never Trumper, but before he made the full transformation to MAGA ignorant land, he was admitting the defeat of your Lord and Savior, Donald Trump, in the 2020 election. How about that? By the way, can you imagine how unnerving it must be to have to go through all of JD's socials and see the things that he likes and that he's interested in? I mean, I'm fairly certain that he likes couches on Facebook. Now, never Trump guy, JD Vance quickly started changing his tune and adapting the deranged, psychotic, cultist fealty that Donald Trump perpetually still got when even we thought that after January 6th, like it was all done. You know, like Republicans can maybe discover a spine and go back to their old ways of just being dicks on other things, but not like treasonous cultist psychos. That didn't happen. So, of course, JD Vance had to change his tune. So, in July of 2021, when he entered the Ohio Senate Republican primary, he started apologizing and groveling for his anti-Trump rhetoric. And in fact, it was so much so that during the debate with then Democratic Ohio Senate candidate Tim Ryan, Tim pointed this out of JD Vance's sycophantic ways, which I think is significant because that's the message here, is that JD Vance is a smarmy, toady sycophant who actually doesn't really support Donald Trump, but is hoping that he can somehow become president because a certain old guy may not make it.
On the stage, Donald Trump said to JD Vance, all you do is kiss my ass to get my support. After Trump took JD Vance's dignity from him on the stage in Youngstown, JD Vance got back up on stage and started shaking his hand, taking pictures, saying, hey, aren't we having a great time here tonight? I don't know anybody I grew up with, I don't know anybody I went to high school with that would allow somebody to take their dignity like that and then get back up on stage. We need leaders who have courage to take on their own party. And I've proven that, and he was called an ass kisser by the former president.
And you know, I don't just want you kissing my ass. I want you living in my ass. Lord knows it's big enough. But now, why could JD possibly be considered an untrustworthy, smarmy, sycophantic kiss-up?
I was wrong about Donald Trump.
In 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear?
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border.
Ooh, God, he gives me the creeps. So cringe. Anyway, I am Michael Hayne. This is Really American. If you like our content, hit that subscribe button. Check me out on my latest TikTok at Mike Hayne Comedian. Talk to you later.